Immanuel Kant is one of those philosophers who sits at a crossroads, late enough to inherit the full force of early modern science and the great rationalist-empiricist debates, but early enough to still shape what philosophy would become for the next 2 centuries. He lived in Königsberg in the 18th century, taught for decades, and built a reputation for an unusually systematic mind, someone who wanted not just to answer philosophical questions, but to explain why some questions can be answered at all, and why others keep producing endless disputes. This video series, Reading and Understanding, comes to fill that gap. We will read the entire book and explain part by part, so everyone may be able to understand the philosophy books. Philosophical texts aren't meant to be read like fiction. You often have to read and reread again and again until you grasp the meaning of each part of the book. Hopefully, we can help you understanding every book we will read by commenting each part of it. This teaching method has proven to be very effective in classes, and we hope to be able to reproduce it and achieve our goal of making you understand even the hardest book ever written. To see why the critique of pure reason matters, picture the intellectual situation Kant stepped into. On one side, the rationalists had enormous confidence that reason, working carefully, almost like mathematics, could deliver knowledge about reality beyond experience, God, freedom, the soul, and the structure of the world as a whole. On the other side, the empiricists insisted that if knowledge isn't grounded in experience, it's basically a castle in the air. The result was a philosophical stalemate. Rationalist metaphysics looked ambitious but suspicious. Empiricism looked disciplined but risked collapsing into skepticism. Kant's reaction was not to pick a team. Instead, he asks a more radical question. What are the conditions that make knowledge possible in the first place? That is the core ambition of the critique of pure reason. It is not a critique in the modern sense of a negative review. It's a critique as an examination, almost like a court, where reason is asked to justify its own claims. Kant wants to map the powers and limits of the human mind with the same seriousness that physics maps nature. What can we know and how? What must be supplied by experience? And what is contributed by our own cognitive framework? Why do mathematics and natural science feel so certain, while metaphysics keeps turning into a battlefield? Now let's be honest, this is also the book that scares philosophy students. People hear Kant and immediately imagine dense pages, endless distinctions, and those famously long sentences where you think you've reached the conclusion, only to discover you've merely entered a subordinate clause. The critique has a reputation a bit like a mountain. Everyone agrees it's important, many people talk about it, and quite a few quietly hope they can get the benefits without doing the full climb. And even if you do read it, it can feel like Kant is constantly changing the rules until you realize the rules were always the point. He is trying to show you the architecture of thought itself, and architecture is rarely explained in a casual way. But that intimidation factor hides something crucial. The critique of pure reason is not difficult because it's needlessly obscure. It's difficult because it attempts something unusually precise. Kant is trying to build a framework that makes sense of both scientific certainty and metaphysical temptation, why we can have genuine knowledge in some domains, why we keep reaching for answers in others, and why the mind itself plays an active role in shaping what counts as an object for us. If you can get even the basic map of what Kant is doing, you unlock a huge portion of modern philosophy. German idealism, phenomenology, analytic debates about knowledge, and even contemporary arguments about the structure of cognition. So, in this series, we'll do this the hard way, but the humane way. We'll read short passages, keep the context tight, translate Kant's moves into plain language, and reconstruct the argument step by step. Let's begin with the preface to the first edition.